This is Shane Gibson's podcast from closingbigger.net. Today we've got Sanjay Mehta from he's the CEO of Mirum, India, formerly Social Wavelength. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Shane. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast.
Yeah, fantastic. And we should probably maybe fill in the audience a little bit. We met, I was trying to figure out, I think it was November 2012 in Mumbai at the World Brand Congress. Does that sound like about right for the date? I think that's when it would have been.
I think so. Somewhere around then. I'm also a little hazy on the date, but yeah, it seems about that kind of time. It's been a while since we actually met. We've been in touch on Facebook, but I think the meeting was a few years back.
Yeah, we met at the hotel where the conference was, and connected. And at that point, I mean, remember, this was 2012, and at that point, you were already really fully invested in social media. So I would, assume that you were one of the, forward-thinking agencies in the social media space, particularly in India, even Southeast Asia at that time.
I guess so. Yeah, I think we started out in 2009 when it was really, really early days, and I remember those early days when we, as an agency, we did not need to go and sell the agency as much as we had to sell social media. Mm-hmm. So I know that was definitely early days. Now it's a competitive world with lots of agencies out there. So if I need to win some business, I have to sell the agency now. But those days we were just selling the concept of social media, and if I managed to sell that, the business was ours. So yeah, it was early days in the space when we started, yes.
Fantastic. And I mean, I've kind of lost track because it seems like every time I turn around, Mirum is getting another award either in India or internationally for the work you do in social media and digital marketing. What was one of the more recent ones?
So we had this brilliant campaign which we did last year. It was called Fundtastic. We did this for Franklin Templeton Mutual Fund, mm-hmm. Which of course is a U.S. Headquartered mutual fund with presence around the world and a fairly decent presence in India. So Franklin Templeton Mutual Fund has been one of the forward-thinking funds in terms of adopting digital. So while a lot of them are still taking first steps, Franklin Templeton was ahead of the curve, and they have been very active for the last few years. And we have been working with them for at least 3-4 years now. So one of the obligations that every mutual fund in India has is to do investor education, because mutual funds is a concept that is not easily understood by a lot of common investors. Mm-hmm. So the regulatory body has mandated that all mutual funds need to spare a certain amount of the corpus that they have towards investor education. It's almost an obligation, and it's always a struggle to do this well because it's a subject which is dry, which is technical, and investors or ordinary consumers do not quite like to sit in front of long videos explaining jargon and things of that kind. Mm-hmm. So the challenge is always there to make it interesting, make it creative, make it work. So that's when we came up with this idea called the Fundtastic Cup. It was a gamified environment to make investor education simple, and so it was constructed as an app on iOS, Android, and Windows, and it was also on the web, on the desktop, and it was mirrored around on the theme of cricket. Cricket is the most popular sport in India, mm-hmm. and it's almost like a religion. So the whole game had a cricket theme, which means that as a person played the game, they saw concepts which were cricket concepts, like an over and hitting a sixer or hitting a boundary or scoring runs and things like that. But whatever actions they were taking to do this was investor education action. So they were looking at a quiz or questions, and every time they got it right, they scored runs. If they didn't get it right, the game would pop the actual question, actual answer. So in the process, if you got it, that means you know the subject. If you didn't get it, you were getting the answer. So very subtle education was happening. And this worked really, really well. It far exceeded the targets we had set ourselves for in terms of the number of education events that we will create. It went into millions, and in terms of effectiveness to generate the investor education was one of the most effective programs which was run. And because of this, as it has won a bunch of awards in direct social media kind of acknowledgement, as well as specifically in areas of financial, using social and digital media for financial industry. So yeah, I think we've clocked probably more than 30 awards for this one campaign. So yeah,
That's
we really,
amazing.
yeah, and we're coming up with Fantastic Cup 2, which is all ready and will roll out in early part of 2016. Yeah.
Amazing. And so, how many downloads did that app or activations did that application have?
I think the downloads were in the region of 100,000 or something like that, which is pretty large considering it's a very niche
Yeah,
financial
absolutely.
business and education thing, and also it's a branded thing. So it's for a brand to kind of push something. If it's a game or something which anybody is downloading to have fun, that's a very different thing as against a brand trying to educate. So I think somewhere around that, but I think the number which all of us were chasing was the number of unique education events. Every time somebody answered a question or engaged, that was one education event which was happening, and that's what actually was what mattered from the even the
Measurement
regulatory
perspective.
body point of view, that how much education we are really imparting to the investor community. So I think it really went well.
What a great way to measure too, because a website really won't tell you kind of how much people are engaging or what they're learning, but that's extremely
Yeah.
measurable. So, what a great way
Yes.
to tie return on investment and measurement to social
Yeah.
media. So
Yes.
that's like kind of the
Yes.
next level of social, if you think about it, is kind of where that's evolved to. Um,
Absolutely.
so now you're doing campaigns outside of India, or working with a number of clients outside of India as well, correct?
Yes.
So
I mean, to a certain extent, I think it's just the beginning. I believe it'll become more. But yes, we've started. We're doing a bunch of stuff. Yes.
I mean, I don't know if you ever even have to leave Mumbai for the rest of your life to probably build an agency that's global in scale as far as size. I mean, it's such a huge market there. But one question, and that is, do you find dealing with the market in India and then dealing with markets outside of India, do you find there's a major difference in what like the consumer or just individuals on the web are responding to as far as social content compared to other countries?
So I mean, there are obviously differences at the fine level in terms of sort of what drives the behavior of the netizen in different parts of the world. But for us, the first so to say, first point of convincing somebody is the client.
Yes.
And what I find interesting is that the level of awareness of the potential of the medium and what it can do, it's the that is pretty similar in India as outside India, in terms of where the traditional marketer has reached in terms of grasping the potential.
Yes.
And there are shades. So there are the few who have been, if I may say, that the early adopters from coming from a traditional media background, coming from the television and print world. There were a few who took on the challenge early enough and kind of dabbled and have reached a reasonably good level of understanding today. But there are several who are still discovering and still kind of having a lot of, I would say, incorrect understanding and hence groping. So thinking that, okay, I'm talking to a Western world, developed world customer, a client, and he should be knowing this, but that's not always true. And sometimes we get asked very, very fundamental questions, and so which we often find from Indian clients as well. So in that sense, the traditional marketer in different parts of the world probably has been equally sort of not been able to sort of raise the level of understanding due to this, probably the same reason. The reasons have been a, that obviously he's has a full-time day job trying to do what he's anyway doing, which is maybe managing his print campaigns or his PR or whatever traditionally he does. And then it's a question of sort of breaking the barrier of that insecurity that, oh my God, I don't get it digital and all this is too complex. Because I think that one difference, from print to television and everything, and outdoor hoardings and all that, that is fundamentally it's space selling.
Yes.
So there is, it's in some sense it's easier to look at one from the other, and you come to digital and it's like really a different ball game with all sorts of technology and like a run of the site and CPMs and the CPCs and whatnot. And so as soon as you kind of go to the second or third level, they're like, oh my God, what's going on here? So some of them then just put a barrier and they don't get it. And so some of these traditional reasons, and I see them happening as much in India as outside India.
Yes.
So that's where it is. But I think what is changing is as the digital native is coming into senior positions in organizations, the guys who have
In India, faster probably than anywhere else because of the demographic, eh?
yeah, I guess so. I think that's true. I think the average client that I have encountered in, it's not that I have encountered a lot of people outside India. It's still my maybe 95% of my business or interactions have been with people in India. But
Yes.
whoever I have, I think the average age is much higher in the western side. More often than not, we are seeing
Yeah, and it has
40,
it's
40,
somewhat
45. Yeah.
40 to 45% in the sort of millennial age group in your, where in North America it's just beginning to move into even just middle management, and we have a lot of older demographic that is somewhat, in some ways they, wisdom keeps the ship running in the right direction, so to speak, within many organizations, but it also slows technology adoption down in a big way.
Correct.
And that's the the big thing, I think. I would say in India, and you can correct me on this or maybe expand upon it, is that India, to a large degree, leapfrogged, especially North America, in mobile marketing because of just the number of mobile devices there.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you're not left with a choice. I mean, everybody's seeing the numbers on television and print and everything go down in terms of the viewership, readership, things of that kind. And as against that, if you see the minutes spent on a phone on a mobile device has just kept going up and up, and it's going across demography. It's going into the so to say the lower, relatively lower strata of society in terms of economy. And if I'm a brand manager, if I'm a marketer, I just have no choice but to use that screen to get my message out to him, and which means that I have to understand, I have to get into the mobile marketing one or the other way. So yes, it's forced upon them.
So for you, I mean, whenever I read your updates, read blog posts, you're always quite enthusiastic and appear to be quite inspired about what you're doing every day. What excites you most about social media marketing and the digital marketing space today? What do you find most exciting?
Shane, from the time that I jumped into this way back in 2009, so my influence was a couple of really interesting books I read, and one of them was The Groundswell from the Forrester Press, and it was always at a very deeper and fundamental level of consumer behavior and the potential that this medium has, and it was never just about running one more fancy campaign on Facebook and getting some likes. So I have at least always attempted through my discussions with clients, or whenever I get an opportunity to speak at conferences and elsewhere, to appeal to the larger opportunity, which is where social and digital media can make an impact to your business objectives. And having said all that, 2009, that's what we went and started talking and all. But as soon as it came to, okay, what should we do for our business? Businesses came and said, oh, let's start a Facebook page, which was very
Especially
uh,
2009.
exactly around that time, 2009, 2000, it almost till 2011, it was still, get a page, make a lot of fans, in my category, I should have the most number of fans, and those were all the wrong goals to chase.
Hmm.
But we were okay, because I think the way at least I looked at it was that if somebody, instead of sitting on the side and just analyzing more, if they at least dabble, if they get their feet into the water, they'll get comfortable, and then they'll start learning more. And that's exactly how the market has evolved. Today we reached a point where, in India especially, for multiple reasons, and I'll come to the reasons later. But where it has reached is that brands and marketers are now seeing the space beyond just a building up of fans and followers kind of thing, to actually sensing that hey, this can really deliver business.
Hmm.
It can drive business results, and which is the most exciting, because now the kind of work which comes our way, or the opportunities which have come our way, allow me to go with very large business impacting digital transformation kind of solutions, and where I know that what I'm doing is making a bigger impact. When we were doing those Facebook campaigns and all, I know that the client was doing because it was a checkbox which he had to do, that, oh, I have got started into social. But really, for making a big impact to his business, he was still talking to his mainline creative agency, the guys who were doing his television campaign and stuff like that, because that's what moved the needle for his sales and things of that kind. Today, it's not necessarily so. I mean, he still has a huge dependence on television. It's not gone away, most brands, I'm saying. But today, I know that I can make a difference through what we do. We can get more people walking into the store. We can save his customer service costs. We can create a more efficient mobile based network for his field salesmen. We can do a bunch of things which are very real and which are real business solutions. And hence, the CEO of an organization has years for us. And that's the most exciting, that this is where we always wanted to be. We didn't want to be a fringe player who was getting the loose change after all the other marketing money was spent. We wanted to be in that boardroom and make a difference to organizations, in which we are now getting opportunities. We have some really amazing opportunities on our table at this point, and that's the most exciting. And as I said, the reasons for this, I mean, I mentioned earlier that there are some reasons which drove, and one of the biggest reasons is the sheer numbers. When we were talking in 2009, 2010, 2011, the question which came back to us from the clients were that, hey, look, we are a country of more than 1 billion people, and we are at 50 million, 100 million, Facebook or whatever. So it's a small niche percentage of my market potential, and if I can't go, I can't over-index based on what you're telling me, because my real customer is on the street and he's coming to the store and he's reading the newspaper and seeing television, so that still gets priority. Now, today, as we approach internet population of close to 300 million and growing rapidly, that base cannot be ignored. And because it can't be ignored, they have to give it priority. And suddenly, the focus has shifted, and which is where a much higher level of seriousness has come in from marketer, from the CEO, and that is forcing them to give it that inadequate, disproportionate time, not inadequate, disproportionate time from their side, and give us some
So, I
respect
mean, that puts
on that
India,
table there.
that puts India, the Indian social media community is significantly larger than the one in the United States at this point. I mean, with 300 million people, digitally connected through social. I mean, that's the entire population of the United States, right? So
Yeah.
that's a
So,
massive.
so just to correct, we are 300 million on the internet at this time.
Yes.
The social media base is a little lower than that, probably half of that, or maybe, yeah, something around that.
Okay.
But 300 million on the internet, and sorry, 300, yeah, 300 million on the internet. So they're checking email and doing a bunch of some of those things. And sooner or later they'll all be, Facebook is doing, Facebook and Google, all of them are doing some mega campaigns to kind of get people, all those 300 people, and the new ones which are coming in, to see how it's so great to be on Facebook and whatever. So I mean, we will see conversions, most of them getting onto social media in some time. But yeah, the internet base is about 300 million now.
So drilling kind of right down, because we're talking about the size of the market in India and where you've grown. Can I actually take a step back first? How large is Mirum, India? Like, how's the how many people are on your team? Are you all in Mumbai? Are you dispersed throughout the country? Just tell us a bit about your organization.
Right. So actually, maybe I'll just take just a little bit to explain
Hmm.
Mirum. I mean, so Mirum, like you mentioned at the outset, is actually formerly Social Wavelength. So we started in 2009 as Social Wavelength, and we started as a pure play social media agency. In
Yes.
2009, we were all of four people when we got started. And however, so as an entrepreneur, one had a vision, but a lot of times the vision doesn't work out. But very interestingly, this time it panned out as exactly as we planned, and we grew rapidly. So social media as a space grew rapidly, and we kept pace, and we continued to sort of scale. And so before we knew, we were about 150 people, and we were in a much bigger office, and we had got some initial small angel funding, just so we were good on the cash flows and everything. And that was in 2011, 2012. 2014 marked one major milestone in our business, which is when WPP Group acquired us. So they have majority stake in the company now.
Hmm.
That was in April of 2014. But we continue to stay as Social Wavelength till earlier this year. So in January of this year, I mean, just so that maybe not everybody who's listening to this podcast may be aware, but in January this year, WPP Group, as well as specifically the J. Walter Thompson Company, which is a part of WPP, uh, felt it necessary to create a global digital agency brand as well. So, where WPP has the JWTs and the Ogilvies and the Greys, which are brands and creative agencies which are globally present. In digital, the history was that every geography had some brands, and there were acquisitions, and they continued to be in their own name. They recognized in this changing world, both as a brand and as well as from a pure collaboration, and bringing together a huge knowledge force in digital. It made sense to sort of bring them under one umbrella, and which is when Mirum was created in January. And Mirum is a global digital agency brand of the J. Walter Thompson Company. And it brought together initially top agencies in digital world from about 11 geographies,
Yes.
from the US and Europe and Southeast Asia and South Africa and elsewhere. So that marked the beginning, and from January till date, it's had some really rapid growth rates. And we were invited to become Mirum, as Mirum wanted to also extend the geography, come into India, and they looked at us and they realized that we had the right culture and the right kind of skills and digital capabilities. So we also converted to become Mirum in November. So that's just about a month, a little more than a
Wow. So this
month
is
now.
brand new transition for yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
Okay.
social will become Miram, and as Miram India, we are about 170 people, largely based out of Mumbai,
Okay.
and that's where the whole operations and teams are. But we have small sales and client service presence in Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai. So that's where, and a few other markets like Kolkata, We work with the JWT offices in that city, and so we do have clients in different parts of the country.
So
What's exciting us about being part of Mirum Global is one is that suddenly we are part of a 2,300 people community of digital professionals. So we like, we're talking to people like us. We're talking the same language, and which is amazing because while we were part of J. Walter Thompson from last year, we were still talking to people who came from traditional media backgrounds, and which was okay, but they sometimes the language was not the same. Now
yes,
we talk the same digital space, and secondly, there are skill sets across this 2,400 odd people which are unique. So, some part of the world that is unique, big website building strength, somewhere there's mobile capability, somewhere there is shopper marketing, and, maybe our side we have social and all that. So there are centers of excellence, and to a client in India, if I have to offer best in skill in any part of digital, I'm able to draw the right people from Mirum itself and go. And also for us as a social media experienced team, for us to have doors opened in the rest of the world through the Mirum offices there, they come back to us and say, we need this social media work to be done, and can you do it? Certainly for us, we have access to a global market through our own brand Mirum. So all that is the power, and there's a lot of knowledge sharing, there's a lot of collaboration. It's just a month, but we're extremely excited. So that's really quick and dirty of Mirum India.
fantastic. And so, I mean, you've gone from 4 people to literally being connected to now a network of several thousand professionals and a core team of 170 in India.
Yeah.
So you've done, and I know, like, because I've been watching you, you've done, I mean, talk about the number of campaigns and clients and programs you've done, and you've seen it all over the last, 6, 7 years. Today, there's a huge amount of conversation around, and it has been, of course, for the last couple of years, but around the importance of building a community. That it's sort of almost gone full circle, where it was Facebook pages and clicks, and all of a sudden they realized, if I'm going to reach a marketplace, I need to build a real community around a brand. What for you with these, like, some of these are very large scale brands that you're dealing with, and what are your sort of key steps that you guys follow or beliefs you have around building communities for brands? Is it really vital? Is it overstated? What are your thoughts on it?
So my thoughts are this way: that early days of social media, or early days of our company, we were definitely pushing very aggressively that community is the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple things have happened. One is that the social media space has become extremely cluttered all over again. So pretty much like print or television, there's just a lot of things going on.
Mm-hmm.
So for a consumer, when he comes onto his Facebook news feed, there's tons and tons of stuff which catches his eye. So he clicks here, he clicks there. He's got a lot of things to do. So that's one. Second is that increasingly, because of this busy world that all of us live in, with brand messages in your face wherever you look, from your phone to the outside of the bus, to the out of home hoarding, to newspaper, to print, to social, everywhere, the fundamental attention span of a consumer is very little. So that's the other fact. Now, when you think community, finally, if a brand invests in trying to build a community, there is an end goal in mind. Finally, every brand, every business needs to have a commercial goal that it should all end up meaning something to my bottom line at the end of the day. Even if there's an investment of a year, 2 years, I'm okay. But do I see light at the end of the tunnel if I'm investing in building and nurturing a community? Now, because of the busy world, because of the low attention span, what could happen is that after investing in community, you might still lose the consumer between the start till getting him into the door and getting him to buy your product, because there's just so much which draws him to other places. So anything which is that large, that long, and that expensive to build and manage, and has a long cycle, the brands would have a question that am I guaranteed that because I'm building this community, they'll ultimately come and buy my product or use my service and pay me money? And that's really challenging. I'm not able to always give a convincing answer that yes, it will happen.
Do you think
Because of
it's
which,
different though from, for instance, business to consumer versus business to business?
yeah, yeah, there are exceptions. So there's not. It's not like I'm first giving a more generic answer,
Yes.
which is for most brands, and which is where the challenge is, and hence to the generic brand, the investment or the deep investment into community building is something which we're not particularly pushing.
Hmm.
Um, on the other hand, there are exceptions. So, so exceptions are, one is where the brand has a kind of an iconic status, or like it's like an aspirational brand that I want to be seen to be wearing a Rolex, or I want to be seen, or I want to belong to the Harley community, I want to be the part of the Apple community and all that. So there are obviously exceptions where people are drawn in because of just the magic of the brand, the Starbucks and Nike and all that. So those are good, those are great, and those have a natural tendency to have a community happen, and which is where the brand has the opportunity to do things and make them, make their community members more attracted and give them value because they are already congregating around your brand. So those exceptions are there. And then yes, when you come to a business to business side, you see, it's obviously a much smaller audience. It's a very focused, targeted audience.
Hmm.
Usually, the way we see business to business is that, if I'm, for example, let's say I'm a chemical supplier or manufacturer, and I supply to a paint industry. I mean, there's a very direct connect. Here's my chemical, and here are these 500 paint companies who are my prospects. That's my sort of sphere of interest. I don't need to worry about the 501st person because this is it. Now,
Yes.
so if A, it's a very small group. B, if I'm doing a certain chemical, there are probably 100 other companies who can offer the same chemical. So what's there to differentiate? Because that whatever so and so chemical is so and so chemical. So is it always going to be the lowest price? Here's where you as a brand can engage that group of 500 and come out with, let's say, a thought leadership about you, that you really get the space well. So even though the chemical is the same chemical, you say that you get you make it with less pollution. So you're a brand that if they buy from you, they in turn are responsible for lesser environment abuse, or the that sort of where how to use the chemical well in the process of paint manufacturing, so that you get the best sort of productivity or whatever it is. Now you're showing yourself that I have a product and here's my quotation, but no, I know something bigger. I can help you run your business better. Now that kind of thing works really well when you engage that audience into, let's say, a group or on LinkedIn or something,
Hmm.
and suddenly you're offering value, you're creating thought leadership for yourself, and those people are connected and stay connected because every day you're helping them make their work better, or they're learning something from you, they're getting value, and that works really well. So that's something where a community still works and can be extremely effective for a brand. If And that's also the only way you can differentiate. Otherwise, it'll always be price, that are you the cheapest, and then I buy from you, otherwise I don't. So you want to go away from there, and that's where the thought leadership or community can help you for this kind of a case.
Fantastic. So, kind of talking about thought leadership and around content creation and building community, and one of the areas, as you know, I'm focused on a regular basis is the area of social selling, kind of equipping sales teams and sales organizations to use social media for communications, but also to kind of establish themselves as thought leaders within their own client bases. Are you seeing a trend towards this where organizations are now wanting to create content that their sales teams can use on a one-to-one basis? have you been involved in any type of projects like this? I noticed that you're, very involved with, of course, the Salesforce and the Marketing Cloud and whatnot as well. So is this an area that you see as beginning to evolve?
Absolutely. No, no, absolutely. This is a it's a big area. A lot of companies, and including some of our clients, have very large sales force. They're people on the ground. There are financial services companies who have a huge distribution arm. There are financial advisors around the country, who advise their clients on products and sales. Most of the time, all this very large extended network of people are grossly underutilized, and they're still doing things the same old way, which used to happen in terms of just pushing products, or taking brochures and going and doing it in a very, very old and traditional way, where in fact there is a huge power of social selling which can be unleashed. And the way we see it, and what we tell our such clients is that, look, you have the advantage of feet on the street. You have a huge distribution network in that sense, in terms of people who meet and engage with consumers around the country. But they are continuing to sell in their own limited way. Maybe somebody gets the product well but doesn't get anything more. So all of these salespeople or distributors have their own networks of clients or consumers who they connect with, and they probably are also on social media today in their own way, but they are not using the medium anywhere for carrying the brand or the product message forward. Left to them, you call them on your sales conference and tell them, hey guys, you are all on social media, you should use social media for your connecting to your consumers. And some of them will attempt it, some of them will do something. They may not know how to communicate well, they may not know what kind of content to offer, and they'll fumble, they'll probably do something wrong because they don't get the right way. And some will not have anything to share because they don't have the material, they don't have something latest. So it won't happen just by saying that, okay guys, go out and do some social selling. So that's where some interesting programs come up, and we've done a couple of those for clients. Here is where we create a repository of centralized content from the brand's point of view. Now, this content could be of various types. So it's rich media, it's text, it's video, it's images, it's whatnot. And we create a platform where any of these sales guys through a login can come and pick whatever they want, and with a click of a button share it to their networks, on Facebook, on Twitter, maybe on WhatsApp, wherever. And that's it. So they don't need to worry about creating content. They get the best of content created centralized,
So
and they can share it.
is this a proprietary platform that you've built for your clients, or isn't it?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And what it goes, it goes further. At the central level, the brand can see who's sharing how much. It's also seeing that if a person has shared an article or shared some content piece, what is the reach that got? And also how far is that message going? And a basis which the salespeople get points, and these points are
So
like any reward
you've made
points.
sharing into a KPI, and not just the act of sharing, but who's actually influencing more, which is
Right. I mean,
what an
yeah,
amazing innovation. That's, I've heard other iterations of that, but not the sharing and measurement end. That's fantastic.
right. So it does two things. One is that it sort of motivates or incentivizes the salesperson. And the reason is that we would have liked him to help himself anyway, but
Yes.
there's an inertia. I mean, it's actually helping his work and his business, but the whole overcoming the inertia part, that look, I need to do this, that the incentives help to achieve that. But also what it does is that in time, if I have like a 20,000 force of salespeople on the field, I'm able to see which of the content is the most shared, what gets the most engagement. So I get a good measurement of what's working for me, what's not working for me, so that I can sharpen my content creation in time, which I even put out on the public platforms, not just with the sales team. So it has a lot of positives, and it's working well. And
Fantastic.
the
I mean,
points that
that's
these sales guys earn, they can get some rewards for that. They can get a trip to Singapore or whatever. So it's all a great win-win.
that's great. So, and that, I was going to, my next question was going to be, a couple of thoughts on what the future of social media will be for 2016 before we wrap up the interview. But I mean, you've kind of given us one. I mean, that's a pretty amazing approach to getting your sales team to share the content and be thought leaders. And so what a great piece there. So I think we'll look at many sales organizations hopefully using your platform, but they'll be evolving to do the same, and I'm starting to see that happen myself. But what else is for the next year? Let's say 2016. If you were to say, here's two trends that social media marketers and forward-thinking business organizations should really be looking at for the year 2016, what do you think those two trends would be?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough one because there's just so much happening. But I'm not sure if I'm getting the top two or the best two. But there are a couple of things which excite me a lot in terms of opportunity, which not just for me but for the clients. One is this whole sort of maybe heavily abused term, but I think still very relevant term. What is known as digital transformation.
Yes.
In spite of some of us having been in the business for a while and thinking that I think the medium has matured now. We are now 5-7 years into it and whatnot. I think there's a lot of organizations which are still taking the baby steps. These are companies which are what we term as the old economy companies, very large businesses, doing traditional work, selling pharmaceuticals, or doing steel or cement, or traditional retail or whatever, and who have somehow not adopted digital to a large extent, and which are areas which are the kind of companies who are who have a double-edged sword in front of them. One is a huge vulnerability that if they still don't do it, they could just be steamrolled, because there are smarter, efficient companies who are coming from behind. And much as these companies may have a long history and big businesses, they could just lose out because of efficiencies and opportunities that the new startups, the guys who adopt, are getting. And so there's a big vulnerability of losing out all of a sudden, because you're doing business inefficiently, you're still doing the old ways, you're not taking advantage of what the medium offers. On the other hand, if they choose to make the shift, and that's the whole opportunity of digital transformation, they could quickly and clearly swing the other way around, because with all the great advantage they have of the infrastructure, the reach, the product, the brand equity over the years, if they now become efficient, the impact from their business is so huge that they can look really smart, and they can even take on the so to say the hero smart brands which we see today, which are all these new venture capital invested .coms and online commerce companies who seem to be the only ones looking cool now. So the old economy companies can have their business back if they can take a big road of digital transformation, which if it has to happen, has to come with a huge buy-in from the top of the management. I mean, the CEO downward, the chairman downward, has to say that, look, we got to do this. We have to make the change. We have to move it across the organization. We have to look at all our business processes. We have to look at sales. We have to look at marketing. We have to look at customer service. Where all can we use digital efficiently? Market, product innovation, distribution, commerce, everything. And of course, it doesn't happen like in one flip of a button, but kind of take it as a strategy. Think of it as a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year kind of a transition, and then make it. So that's one which is really exciting. And for us, it's exciting because obviously, when there is a buy-in from a client and they trust us, we're looking at like a 2 3 year horizon, great association, very measurable impact. We've obviously good business for us, but making a difference to the company. So that's one.
Yes.
And the second is, probably a little less known, but we find huge value. So you might remember that we've always also been in the social media listening business. So
Yes. Social media
where,
monitoring. Absolutely.
yes, so where the more visible face of social media has been the outbound communication, the Facebook pages and the YouTube videos and the tweets. What actually also has huge value is of the listening into social media conversations, and we've been doing it from the day we started the business in 2009. But where traditionally social media listening was most used and continues to be used are two spaces. One is the what we call as social CRM, because consumers go and raise their complaints or queries or cribs or rants on social space, and as an organization you got to find them, look it up, and respond. So that's your customer interaction, like you do a CRM, except it's happening on the social field. So that's social CRM. And the other is ORM, the online reputation management. Somebody is screwing up with your brand, you want to find out, you need to fix it, protect yourself. So these two have been the most commonly used uses of social listening. But what's emerging as a third, and that's what I was coming to as one of the most exciting spaces within social media listening, is is the space of market research and consumer insights through social media listening. Now, let me explain. So all of us as participants on social media, uh, you know, spend put out so much of our viewpoints and on brands, on our wish lists, on what we like, what we dislike. As a whole, that's a huge and humongous amount of direct consumer responses which are out there. Now, if I'm a brand, I want to, as against conducting traditional market research, can I just dip into this huge pool of self expression and pull out the perception, pull out the viewpoints, either from a category point of view or a brand point of view, or from a consumer behavior point of view, and get some rich information out of that. And that's exactly what is possible. And we've done several such engagements in the course of 2015, and we believe that our clients have got extremely good value. They've been extremely happy. They've come back to us for more. And this is a space which excites me the most because, I'll give you an example. We, we work for a wine conglomerate. They are present in multiple countries around the world. So we worked for them to look up wine as a category in specific markets. The markets identified were Australia, New Zealand, the UK, and the North American market. And we what we gave them was something like a 160-page report come out of only social listening across these markets. And the kind of stuff we were able to get was, what are the different kinds of wines that people talk about, the whites and the reds and the sparklings and the champagnes. What are the associations? What kind of food gets associated with wine? Where and how much? Which market talks about vegetables? Which markets talk about cheese? Which market talks about dessert and wine? When is wine had? Morning, afternoon, evening? What occasions it's had with? Is it with weddings? It's with parties. It's with office parties, office meetings. Who are the influencers in the space? What are they talking about? What's the search space like where wine is concerned? What is the visual representation of wine which works? Is it fancy bottles? Is it whatnot? I mean, the overall material which we got was extremely powerful. And to just give you a little peep, and I know I'm slightly giving away an interesting nugget. But I mean, just to make a point is that, for example, we understood that of all the conversations around wine, the one which was responsible for close to 50% of the communication on social media was wine events. Okay.
Yes.
Wine events or wine tasting or whatever, those generated 50% of all conversation on wine. Now, one has wine probably right through the year, and maybe, you know, 4 times a year or 2 times a year or 3 times a year, one may be present in a wine event. If you you're a wine consumer, you probably consume, 2, 3, 4 days a week, but you're at a wine event maybe once or twice or thrice a year, maybe, and some maybe more or less, but that wine event contributes 50% of all conversations. Now, what this tells a brand is that if they have to launch wine in a market, or they want to launch a new wine, they have to do an event. It's a
Yes.
no-brainer, and they need to engage the influence. They get like 10 influencers into a room, get them talking, and they would have launched a wine because it contributes so much conversation,
Hmm.
create fans. So now that was a nugget which came out. One would have intuitively thought about it, but when somebody says that of all wine conversations, 50% are around wine events, then you're completely convinced that that is the way. So things like that.
Well,
So
fantastic. That is a nugget. I mean, that's a huge nugget, and I think that's an interesting blend between we talk about being in social media when it really refers to being social, which is about people, and there is no barrier, right? That's still a social media event, the offline event, and I think the social just amplifies that, and so but that's a great finding. So Sanjay, thank you very much for taking time out of, I know it is a very busy schedule, to share with us your insights and the future of social media and digital marketing. So thank you very much for joining us.
thank you, Shane. Thank you for having me over. I'll look forward to the link.
Absolutely. And hey, how do people find you or find more about your organization? What's the best way to connect with you through Twitter, and what's your website? What else? How can we find you?
I'll, I'll just put it in the chat here. I'll
Okay.
just put it. Yeah. So that's my Twitter handle, and
At SM63.
yes,
So that's easy to remember,
and
nice and short. So at
yeah.
SM63 on Twitter, and where you can really get Sanjay's insights and find the rest about his business. You can also email him at info@socialwavelength.com. This is Shane Gibson's podcast from closingbigger.net. You can find notes and links to all the resources we talked about today at closingbigger.net. Testing, testing, 1, 2, testing, testing, 1, 2. 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 Testing, testing, 1, 2, testing, testing.